Alright, welcome back to PacWest Bigfoot. This is David, and what I wanted to do was actually redo this particular encounter here. So if you've already listened to this one, that was fine. I'm just republishing it, putting it back out there. So with that, enjoy. This is the Midnight Thief of Gasquet, California. I have a midnight thief that comes around a few times a month. Whoever it is, or whatever it is, they will come and take food from the garbage cans at night. The biggest concern for me was the fact that the garbage cans are one of those big, giant, metal, old school dumpsters that a bear, coyote, or any other animal can't really get into. I know. You'd think they can lift the lid. Well, not this one. Trust me, it's surrounded by a 6-foot metal fence just for that reason. But who is it? What is it? Well, here's my story about the thief in the night in Gasquet, California. The Midnight Thief. My story, and if you want to call it an encounter you can, started out simple and it still continues today. Gasquet, California is a blip on the way to Northern California coast and Southern Oregon coast. It sits almost smack dab right near the middle of the Redwood National Forest, the NorCal part, that is. Here's a brief historical fact about how Gasquet Village came to be. Gasquet was originally founded back in 1853 when an enterprising young Frenchman named Horace Gasquet arrived in Crescent City, California, seeking his fortune during the gold rush. Horace quickly realized that his gold is not in the mine but in the miners, and established the town of Gasquet 18 miles to the northeast of Crescent City. If you close your eyes, as they say, you'll definitely miss it. Yeah, it's actually considered a village even today. I love it here amongst the tallest trees in the world, and most of them were here when the good Lord was born, died, and rose again. From what I hear, some are even older. There I was, a new business owner decades ago. I bought a little piece of land with some inheritance monies and decided to buy a smaller store beside a very busy route through the Redwood National Forest in Gasquet Village. Suffice it to say, I not only own the store, but I also helped to run the small post office just adjacent to it. So now you know why I had a large garbage can and was not for Hillary's email. Inside the store was rather small, not a 7-Eleven size actually, just a bit bigger than that. Most people that live nearby did not want to drive 18 winding miles, sometimes slick miles, to Crescent City just to get milk and eggs. In just a few minutes or so they could get here locally. But enough of the view. It all happens in Gasquet. Part of the grocery store is actually a cafe of sorts. We carry sandwiches and fried foods like corn dogs and burritos. Okay, a cafe is stretching it a bit, but we serve a mean latte. With all the fast food style goods going on, we have to get rid of things almost on a daily basis. Now you know why we have such a big garbage can. The garbage area is not too big, just enough for a large old dumpster and a chain link fence taller than me to go around it. Of course, the occasional raccoon comes in and tries to get in, but to no avail. The lid is far too heavy for them. But that does not stop something from getting in it. It started shortly after I installed the dang thing, about 4 months or so, if that, I suppose. Either way, something was lifting the lid, tearing through everything, and then, for whatever reason, it would shut the lid when it left sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. Of course, I thought it was a person, and rightfully so. What else out here could get past that fence, lift the lid, and be willing to set it back down again? In my line of work, and especially the location, the occasional tourist driving through can be a little uncaring. That goes for both sides of the political aisle. I don't care if you have a Save the Planet sticker on there. Everybody litters. People are people in the end, I guess. I really thought that people were simply pulling over after midnight or so and just heaving garbage over. Or it was some old hippie types wandering through on their bikes, hoping for a quick clean as you can get meal from the can. That has happened before, and I caught a pair of them once. However, instead of shooing them off, I fed them some real food instead. However, this was becoming rather frequent compared to those two on their way through to wherever. Once, twice, even up to 4 times a week this was happening. Of course, a few nights here and there I would stay up and wait, but nothing stirred those nights except for some raccoons still wanting to find a way in, but to no avail, so they took off back to the forest. As a matter of fact, the forest literally creeps right up to the back of the store and post office here. We're within about 30 yards of the redwood thick forest here. I could have tried FLIR cameras, but I was not all that into spending money in something like this. It's not like they, them, or it was trying to get into the store or post office. But here's some specifics before I let you decide what you think was making the midnight visits in my little beloved town of Gasquet. The one thing I did notice was tracks, or what I would rather call, and soon came to actually view, as footprints. In these first couple of months, it was hard to make out what or who was making these visits due to the rainfall that was happening during the early fall. Here and there on a drier day, yeah, I could make out what I thought were footprints, but even the still moist soil made it hard to make out. But I swear I made out toes and a heel at one point. It was not until the third month, toward the end of it, that things dried up a bit and I could clearly make out footprints. At first my wife thought it was possibly some forest hippies coming in from time to get some free food again, however gross that sounds. Hey, I hate poverty too, but I try to keep the good stuff towards the top of the dumpster, to tell you the truth. However, I asked her to take a second look and a harder look and tell me what she really saw. She gasped like I did when she took a second look. They were huge. I decided to measure one of the one track that stood out the best, the one heading back towards the tree line. It looked like it measured 18 1/4 inch. That freaked her out, and I was simply flabbergasted at the notion of LeBron James or something bigger out here in the back of my store in the middle of the night. I hope you get my joke there, but to tell you the truth, I like to joke a bit about it because it just eases the tension we begin to feel after that. The other frightening thing was the fact that the fence seemed unscathed, as if it, whatever it was simply reaching over a 6-foot tall fence to open a dumpster and rummage through it. At that time, and currently, we live not too far from the store, and the forest literally is right outside our front and back door here. So yeah, we were a little freaked out about what could be making midnight visits with such huge footprints. Months went by, and the visits were random, that putting out the money for a camera was still not worth it, even if it was what we thought it was, a Bigfoot. And we toyed around with other explanations, but the evidence only led to one reasonable conclusion. We were dealing with what had to be around a 9-foot tall, 500 to 600 pound beast of the redwoods. No, it is not an unheard of thing here. We have heard many stories from some pretty credible sources here, but we were in no way convinced that they even existed, at least not until that moment. But if it is, well, I hope he or she or them are loving the midnight snacks. I know our other customers do, and now we have one more interesting story to float around town and that passes through the little village of Gasquet before they head into the forest of giant trees.